Sometimes movies are good. They make us laugh, they make us cry, they can make us grrr. And sometimes movies are bad. Actually, a lot of times movies are bad. Every year, though, a selection of films are picked by Hollywood elites to show audiences what the real cream of the crop are. The best the film industry has to offer. So when award season comes along, there's usually an uptick in good film in theaters. Movies that make us laugh, cry, and care. The movies that studios have deemed their best of the year, and what they believe will resonate most with moviegoers everywhere. True artistic statements that will not only delight fans, but impact the next generation of filmmakers and create a lasting impression that'll change the industry for the better. And then there are movies where Matt Damon gets really, really small and it's really stinky. So on today's episode of YouTube, let's talk about Downsizing is a weird movie. There are a lot of bad movies that come out every year, but Downsizing isn't bad. It's not good though, it's just weird. And I wish I could write a 10-word letterbox review that explains exactly what's wrong with this movie, but instead we're gonna have to shrink down really, really small and get our magnifying glasses and our big detective outfits, and we're gonna crawl around like a little ant, and we're gonna figure out exactly what went wrong here. But first, a quick aside. Remember the Bee Movie? Remember how it's like 500 movies in one? It starts with Barry B. Benson trying to find his place in the colony, and then it's a movie where he falls in love with a human, and then it's a movie where he sues the entire human race and lands an airplane. Everybody loves talking about the Bee Movie. They love talking about do you like jazz, and they like doing the little intro, but nobody ever talks about how fucked up the plot is. As a kid, I didn't think about the plot. I was a kid. I liked Mario Brother and Banana in Pajama. But I kind of admire how off the rails the movie gets. Downsizing is like the Bee Movie, except I don't admire it. It's whack, and let's get into it. So Downsizing is about Matt Damon, who plays Paul Sappho. Paul lives in the future, where science has invented a way to fix global warming and overpopulation and waste management by turning people into really, really small guys. Paul's character is nothing. He has no motivation. He has no personality. He's literally just a guy that sees something shiny and then runs towards it. He sees small people for the first time and he looks over at strangers at the bar and he goes,
"Wow, that is wild, isn't it? Just wild." Say, Holly, you can go ahead and put the takeout order in. Thanks.
So him and his wife, Kristen Wiig, pack up their life in Nebraska and they decide to move into one of these retirement homes where they shrink you down. And because you're so small, your $1 turns into like $1,000, so everybody's just really rich. So Matt Damon wakes up and he's looking for Kristen, and uh-oh, Kristen calls him and she's like, "Actually, I'm not gonna shrink down, and you just say small. I'm gonna go leave. I'm gonna go back to Nebraska now." Matt Damon's just stuck there. He can't get bigger, so they just get divorced and he's all sad. But here's the thing. This is fine. This is like 40 minutes of film and it's okay. And the weird thing is, this is what the marketing for the movie was. It was, hey, here's a funny Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie with Matt Damon and Kristen Wiig, and they got Ted Lasso in it, and it's just a romp for the whole family. But then the movie just takes the most drastic left turn I've ever seen a movie take for no reason. Like the Bee Movie before it, a simple movie about finding yourself and finding your purpose simply cannot be enough. Instead, Matt Damon spends 30 minutes moping around as a divorced small guy until he meets Hong Chow. And again, I don't think that this was a perfect movie before this, and I think that Hong Chow has had great performances. I liked her in The Whale recently, and I really liked her in The Menu. I just really don't understand why her character is written the way she is and why she's even in the movie. Hong Chow plays a Vietnamese activist that was downsized by her government for speaking out, and she also had her leg amputated. And I think the concept of taking this cool idea we're introduced to and turning it into a weapon is interesting. It's just so out of place here. But regardless, after she's introduced, Matt Damon accidentally breaks her prosthetic leg. So he quits his job and decides to do all of her work instead. So they go to the slums of this vacation resort and they meet a bunch of people who are really small and really poor. And like, it's never explained why there are slums in this tiny vacation resort community. Like, they weren't gentrifying this land, they built it for this gated community. and you had to be small to get in anyways. And the whole area is encased in a glass dome. I just don't really understand why they're all living in the same place. Anyways, Matt Damon and Hong Chow steal a bunch of expired oxycodone from this guy so they can give it to the sick lady in the slums. And then she overdoses and dies because they gave her too many. And the whole thing is played off for jokes. And I think this is Downsizing's fork in the road, where it stops being a goofy little sci-fi movie and starts being a movie about political activism and environmental awareness. So one thing leads to another, and Matt Damon and Hong Chow get on a boat with these two guys that make cigars and like drugs for small people, I guess. And they all get on a boat to Norway to visit the first small people community. And while they're on the boat, Matt Damon and Hong Chow, which is really weird because the whole movie Hong Chow's just being really patronizing and Matt Damon just feels obligated to help because he literally broke her leg. They have literally zero chemistry, but now they're together and Kristen Wiig is canceled. So they get to the colony and they meet with Jurgen, the scientist that invented downsizing. And he tells them that the human race is going to go extinct really soon. So he invented a big hole that he's going to put all of the Norwegian people in so that they become the new human race. And Hong Chow and the other two guys are like, okay. But Matt Damon, little Matt, goes to Norway and he sees this shiny hole and he's like, oh, I'd love to live in that hole. I'd love to be in the hole. I'm going to live in the hole now. I'm a hole guy now. And first off, I don't really think he was invited. And it really seems like they have a whole midsummer thing going on here. But Matt Damon bangs his little drum and he packs his away suitcase and he's like, okay, bye. I'm going to go in the hole now. Bye, everybody. But then he looks at Hong Chow and this happens.
You look for me. You want help me. You make fuck with me. Now you go down stupid hole.
So Matt Damon says goodbye and goes into the hole, but then he talks to a guy in the hole who's like, oh yeah, you better stay hydrated, better not get rested because we have an 11-hour walk ahead of us. The houses are 11 hours away. And I guess that's just way too much for Matt, so he runs out of the hole and he gives Hong Chow this big hug. And they go back to the slums and they feed this old guy chicken and then the movie just ends. So it's kind of like the B-movie, right? And I really like movies, but I'm not going to claim to have seen every movie. I haven't seen most of this director's previous work, but I've read that his other films aren't really like this. I think the concept is interesting, and I think it could have worked if instead of Matt Damon, it was like a wacky professor dad who accidentally shrinks his kids. But instead, Downsizing takes a simple concept and builds a million stories around it for no reason and tries to make a movie for wide audiences that doesn't really know what it wants to be. I understand why they didn't show any of this shit in the trailers, but why did you put all of this in the same movie? And why does it center around the most forgettable character I've ever seen Matt Damon play? I think having one-note characters in movies is a useful way to have audiences see themselves in these inaccessible situations. But hinging your entire movie on it? When I was in high school, my neighbor was able to get all of the award screeners, so she was able to vote on what the best movies were. And I was able to get my grubby little high school hands on those DVDs. And Paramount Pictures, after losing like $20 million on Downsizing, really thought that it should be up for all of these awards. I love a bad movie I can laugh at. I just think the delusion of thinking this is Best Picture material is hilarious. I think that even if a movie has a good premise and has good actors, it all comes down to tone. Effectively setting the mood for a story you're trying to tell can sometimes be more important than the actual words you're writing. Downsizing is a movie that has no tone. 1 minute it'll try to be funny, and the next it'll try to make you think. And the next it's going on an overly long tangent about Christianity for some reason. And when you're presenting an idea like, what if we could shrink everybody down and save the world, tone is everything. I feel like if they had decided early on what kind of movie they wanted to be and not what million movies they wanted to resemble, they could have made something presentable. I think there's a reason though why nobody talks about this movie, why nobody saw it in theaters, and why nobody even remembers it came out. How is the audience supposed to know who this is for when it doesn't even know who it's for? So what have we learned? Downsizing is kind of a bad movie. I don't know how you market something like this, but it's definitely not this trailer. It all reminds me of 2016's Suicide Squad, a movie that actually did win an Oscar. Suicide Squad was in development hell, and I'm 100% sure that when the studio saw it, they had no idea how they were going to sell it. It was so bad that they made a trailer that changed the entire tone of the movie, and that trailer played so well, they had the people that made the trailer remake the whole movie. Downsizing's marketing was selling a movie that wasn't really there. So much so that Hong Chow, the lead actress, is in the trailer for 1.5 seconds. So yeah, I don't know. I don't like it, and I wouldn't have liked it if they actually marketed what the movie was. I think the movie was probably dead on arrival and there wasn't anything a trailer house could do to fix it. But now I know that I should recycle and dig a really big hole and carry around this big rose that Matt Damon has. It's like really funny and it would make everybody really happy if I brought around this big rose. And that's the video. Thanks for watching. If you liked it, hit the bell or hit the thumbs up or hit the subscribe button. Okay, bye. I'm gonna downsize now. I'm downsizing. Woo!